So let's talk about, we went from tax lien timeline, we're going to go to tax deed timeline. Similar, but a little bit different. Let me show you the overall difference here. Number one, again, the homeowner fails to pay their tax bill by the due date. The grace period passes with no payment made, usually several years. Usually several years, 2 years, 3 years, that type of thing. The state or local taxing authorities seize the property for non-payment and evict the homeowner. Do you see the difference right away? Depending on the state. Depending on the state. Number four, a live sheriff sale or auction is scheduled at the property or other location. Now, let me just pause here a moment. In Texas, matter of fact, we'll be going to, for those of you going to the Austin event, we'll be going to the tax sale there on Tuesday. So you're going to see this actually happening. We're going to a live event. It happens the first Tuesday of every month in Texas. But in Texas, it's a tax deed state. So, well, it's a little bit of a hybrid, but we're calling it a tax deed state. So this scenario happens. They evict the tenant, that property goes to auction. Now, also at auction in Texas, the first Tuesday of every month, are the foreclosure auctions. So while we're there, you'll get to see live foreclosure auctions happening as well, but we'll be there focusing more on the tax side of things. Number four, a live sheriff sale or auction is scheduled at the property or other location. Again, it's different in every state. You'll have to do your research. Number five, or the property is placed on a state-owned or city-owned property list for sale. This is the over-the-counter sales that you saw on the tax lien side. If it's not sold at auction, it goes to the state-owned or city-owned property list for sale. Again, when it gets to either the over-the-county or state or city-owned scenario, these are properties that have already been looked over probably several times. It's not like you're going to go there and find a bunch of really good quality assets to buy. It's not there's none, but there's not going to be a ton of them, okay? So it does take some effort. Number six, investor or new homeowner buys the property and takes immediate possession. Now, that should excite some of you, but I don't want you to get too excited just yet, okay? So a deed scenario is you own the property. You own the deed at that point. You buy it at auction. You don't have a lien on the property as you bought the tax lien. You've actually bought the deed to the property. You have home ownership of that property. Does that sound great? Why aren't you more excited about that? Okay, hold on for me a second. Hold on for me a second. There always is a catch. I want to go through a little bit of a time frame, and I should have made this a little bit darker. Don't worry about the small print. I'll read it to you. Don't worry about the small print. But when you buy this and you own the deed, in typical states they have what is called this is where the redemption period happens on deeds. You had them on liens that the person has 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is to come in and pay that. On the deed, even though you own the property, for instance in Texas, they have 2 years to come back, pay those taxes, and then you'll no longer own that property. So you do own the property, you can rent it out for cash flow, but I wouldn't recommend making too much of a capital change with that property until that redemption period goes up. You don't want to start putting in granite countertops and new floors and all this stuff, because if that homeowner comes back, pays those taxes, they get their property back. Is that clear to everybody?
So if
Jerry?
So if there's a renter, then they have to leave? Or?
No, when you take that property, if they've got a lease, you've got to make sure that you adhere to that lease, because that's a contract that you're going to have to adhere to.
When the owner takes the property back, then what's the rates of the renters?
What's the rates for renters?
Rights for renters.
If they have a lease, they have the right to stay there. Absolutely. All I'm saying is during that redemption period on a tax deed state, you don't want to be putting a lot of work into the property, because you're going to be spending money you're probably not going to get back if the owner comes back and takes it. Now, this is the other thing with that. If you need a plumbing repair, or electrical repair or something to maintain that property to rent out, and you spend that money, and it's a necessity of that maintaining that asset. Not granite countertops, that's not a necessity to maintain, but a plumbing problem, like repairing the hot water heater. That expense will get reimbursed back to you if that previous owner pays those taxes. Okay, so whatever expense you've had to maintain the property, as long as you keep your receipts, that typically is reimbursed back to you.
Also operating expenses like property management?
Anything that you use to maintain the property, such as property management expenses, anything like that, if it's a necessity, that gets reimbursed back to you.
Is the original owner that gives you that?
It's in their fees, or fines rather. Okay? Yes?
So, just thinking a little outside the box, the homeowner has this big mortgage, they're underwater, they don't pay the taxes. So they walk away. We take the tax deed, so everything is all wiped out. 2 years later, they come back and pay that minimal amount to get the house back.
Well, they'll have a foreclosure judgment as well on the house. So they can't, that's not a way to get rid of your mortgage.
That's what it sounded like.
I know. No, that's not going to happen. You're going to have a foreclosure judgment on there.
But if,
Yeah.
if we keep the house, that foreclosure bank loan
That's correct.
is gone.
That's correct.
What's the percentage of them actually coming back?
In tax lien states, it's higher. On tax deed states, it's not as high, but I would say 15% or less overall of people paying that tax back. Yep. And usually, again, it's not like this is an easy form of investing. It's challenging. You've got to do your research. You've got some money up front. You're getting paid. But if it's a good property, the people that are there buying that lien or that deed are going to have deep pockets. Those are the ones, and they do this as a business all the time. Not that you can't find good deals, you can, but it's going to take some definite effort with that. Yes.
John, if I invest in this one, my money is locked in without knowing 2 years later the owner might kick back the property.
That's correct. Your money's going to be tied up for 2 years. That's correct.
In both scenarios.
In both scenarios. That's right. You're not going to get monthly income on that money. And you really don't know the final outcome until you go through that redemption period and they don't go pay those taxes back. Or 11 months into it, they pay those taxes back, you get your return. But in some states where the interest rate is higher, like Georgia, say 18%, when they pay their taxes back in that lien and they pay them back in 6 months, you're going to theoretically go do that again, and you're going to get some pretty good interest there, right?
I don't get the appreciation part.
You don't get appreciation part. That's correct.
And my risk percentage is 15%. My risk is 15% of chance that I don't get that.
Your risk is 15%. What I said was there's say a 15%, and I'm estimating here, of the chances of somebody coming back and paying those taxes. Okay? If nobody pays those taxes, you get the asset. If somebody pays those taxes back, you're going to get your return, your principal back and your return. You don't lose your principal. Okay?
So it's a chance to make some really good money. Then.
It's a chance to make some good money and set it on automatic pilot. What a lot of I see Canadians do, because we took a trip to Houston, which is Harris County, a few months ago, and we went to the tax auction there. And some people are using it as a little hedge. They're buying single-family house foreclosures, they're looking at multifamily units, and they're looking at tax lien investing. Maybe they're saying, I'm going to take 15 or 20% of my money that I have to invest, and I'm going to put it towards tax lien investing, getting that high interest rate return. It's almost an investment where you buy the lien and you don't have to worry about it. You're not worrying about tenants, toilets, or termites, kind of thing. Yeah, I should write a book about that. Anyway, Clarence.
You've been discussing Texas.
Yes.
Okay, in Texas, it's 6-month redemption period.
If it's owner, if Homestead.
A homestead is 1 year.
Homestead, right. It's different in Texas. Yeah.
And it's 25%.
What he's talking about is in Texas. Remember the homestead rights that we talked about? If you have a homestead on a property there, you have a longer time as a redemption period. If you don't have a homestead, it's a shorter time, 6 months versus a year. Okay?
Because you can turn your money over every 6 months, getting 25%.
That's right. Every 6 months. If it's non-homestead. That's right. Yep. So it's a high interest rate return. Okay?